Welcome to the Intrinsic First Leadership Podcast. I'm Aaron Robbins with Intrinsic First. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Be sure to stick around to the end for some debatably funny jokes that will hopefully leave you with a smile. And don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date on our latest episodes. We're here to support you, and we'd love to hear from you. So drop us a comment below or reach out to us directly at info@intrinsicfirst.com. Ready to dive into the world of leadership? Let's get started. All right.
Coming back to trust.
Welcome back, everyone. Intrinsic First Leadership Podcast, episode number 27.
Ooh. It's got a nice ring to
it. We took a break from the last podcast, did a full dress change, and then we changed back.
Do you trust that? I got a bridge I want to sell you.
Speaking of trust. So we're going to keep going on our discussion about trust. Jimmy, I think you had a couple topics.
Yeah, so I believe the next topic is really relevant towards trust, and it's also relevant towards this hybrid work schedule. Working from home, everyone's talking about it, and some of the concerns with managers and supervisors is, am I getting productivity from my employee because they're working? Are they screwing around at home or doing something different? And so there's a conversation about that, and then I also wanted to couple that with this notion of, I believe it's more common than not that everybody has a side hustle. And so being able to, when if you're a manager or supervisor, and if my employee is working from home, are they working on the projects that I gave them, or are they doing their side hustle? And I think that conversation doesn't come to light more as often as I think it should. Because I think it's very common. I probably hit every one of our employees. I'm sure they're doing something else that's benefiting them. But the question is that okay during the workday when they're remote?
So to address those, you're talking about one is trust related to people going hybrid and not having that on-site ability for leaders. I've seen, especially in the government side, where it's like, how do I know if you're doing anything if you're not here where I can see you working? Do you think it's best to talk the head and heart trust and the differences between the types of trust to kind of address that, or do we just jump into that discussion?
Well, usually, Usually that's a really important dimension we hadn't gotten to and we should consider, which is that people trust with their head and sometimes with their heart, or separately with their heart. And what that means is that I will voluntarily believe or voluntarily be vulnerable to the promise you make to me with my heart, not just my head. And surprisingly enough, there is a lot of separation in the workplace for how I will sort the issue with my heart or with my head. I'll be more specific, but the initial first chance, you said I trust people unless they give me a reason not to. That's sort of a truism for you, but I would ask, okay, now if we started looking at those issues, what do they separate by the amount of risk to your heart, or to what you value, or to what you can protect or take? You're not really taking a risk for. So let me be more. Give an example if I can. If you ask me, let's say I'm a new manager and I've come on to take over the unit. And I say, so Jim, what do you do for the organization? And you give me a few clear examples of it. And you said, and not only that, I want to do most of my work at home. Now, interestingly enough, cyber loafing, and that's the thing that we were talking before about, cyber loafing has become a big research topic in business, because people are loafing, they're not keeping their promises to people, to the organization. And the question is are they making a promise to the organization, or are they making a promise to you, or to who you are as a person? Now, I probably would want somebody to believe me around issues that I can verify and do the best I can for for what it means to you. So if I said to you, Jim, would you be willing to go to New York and talk to this customer who's creating some problem for us, and see if you can get through some of the things that they're doing that's not good for us? And would you mind doing that over Christmas holidays?
Sure. It's a tough question.
Well, yeah. Well, I want to ask a tough question, but what I'm more interested in is say, I can't pay very much for you, because I can tell you that it'll do me and you some good for what we're trying to do here at the unit, but
you can keep the tips. Come on. Sorry.
So
Did I ruin a serious moment?
Yeah, well, I was trying to set this up with a minimum of words, but okay. So I'm asking you to do something that's above and beyond the call of duty, and you're not getting paid for it quite the way it might. So why would you do that for me?
So a lot of things would have to happen for me to say yes to something like that, and yeah, there have to be a lot of trust that you'll take care of me at another point. Like,
yes.
Lack of a better way of saying it, but I'm scratching your back today, and you'll scratch mine tomorrow.
So,
Yes.
but is that an unspoken kind of
That's
belief,
the trust.
or
that,
would you?
That would have to be in place. I would have to trust knowing that you would take care of me later on.
That's right, and there has to be some proof of that. And the interesting thing is, if you don't know me, you might be willing to do it. If you know me, it's the question of how much I've built up
in the past,
that enabled you to say, okay, I'll give a try for that. That the first time you do it, that's a heart trust. That's your.
Oh, I got you.
It's your willingness to extend yourself, because that's the kind of person.
Because I've already said in the past, I trust people until they give me a reason not to.
That's right.
That's more from my heart than.
That's exactly right.
Than any past performance or past. Okay, gotcha.
So the further out the relationship goes, the more it becomes more cognitive and less with head. I mean, with heart, because heart, you're not operating on a lot of information. And so the research I've seen on it is really fascinating. Let's say that there's a fire in California that they can't put out, and I happen to come. I come from a fire station that's coming down from Portland to help with the fires here in California. How can you put your body on the line in the middle of a fire line that and people are next to you that are doing the same job, and they have to do? Why would you do that? Where does that come from? Is that cognitive trust, or is that heart trust?
That's heart trust, yeah.
Well, actually, if we don't know each other, it's heart trust. But what we do is we depend upon the systems
and the culture,
and who educated them, and where they came from, and what how many fires have they fought on before.
But it's also the culture they're in, the firefighting culture of, like, we take
Yes.
care of our brothers and sisters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So notice you said heart trust, but it's built. What's built in there is a a cognitive awareness that they must have qualified and gotten and
Like
got
a rite
their
of passage.
exactly a whole series of things, and that's one of the things. A very interesting paper that talked about what heart trust is. It's unfamiliar willingness to put yourself out there and risk a lot because of the things you know about either people or the way they were qualified. That's what I mean by heart trust. Head trust is where you have real clear experience with people over time, and you've watched and you look over and I don't know about that because when they did that last week, they so I watched him get into the car, into the taxi, and he asked the cabbie for some blank receipts. What's he going to do with that? So all of a sudden I see a non-trustworthy cognitive behavior about someone and going, I don't know, that bothers me. Or he's always out at night at the bars, and he just strikes up the conversation with the women in the bar, and he's pretty proud of the fact that he's a ladies' man, so to speak. Well, those are the kinds of things that you sit back and you say, well, what in the world, and how? And those are cognitive pieces of information that might influence the trustworthiness of another person. But it's head trust.
So do you separate between the observed experiences you've had from the reputation or
yes,
like certifications or degrees that they have separate of what you've experienced, or is that both head?
Well, both head and heart trust is I know you, I've seen you do it before, and you were right on spot. You kept your promises. And that's a head trust and a heart trust, and oftentimes people, that's the finest trust you can put in front of you. You see the competence in the person, you see their behavior, and you also they've promised you in the past, and they've always been right there doing it. So that's why leaders who act courageously and promise courageous behavior are the strongest.
Well, I see it as like you meet your commitments. If you say something, you're going to do something, then you follow through and you do it. That creates trustworthiness. Mm-hmm. But isn't there like two factors under head and two factors under heart, where it's you've got
how you demonstrate those. Yes.
Yeah, their demonstrated competence versus their experience and reputation, and then on the heart side, it's both their
willingness to care up for the welfare of others,
right? Their intention.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because as we get into the issue of trust, some people are trusted by people with their hearts, but they don't inspire it with their actions, or they don't inspire it with their words. They just do it, or they don't do it. And of course, when you cross the bridge of doing one thing and promising another, those bridges they break the ties, the emotional ties that I have with people or that person.
Because then if you ask somebody to do something for you and you do it, and then they don't appreciate it, or they don't even accept it, or they don't acknowledge it, the next time you ask them to do that same thing, they're going to be like, I don't know if I want to do that for you.
So bringing it all the way back to your example of, people are now teleworking, and the boss is used to seeing their people all around and knowing whether they're working on stuff just by, because they're there and they see them there, and now all of a sudden they're working from home. How does the head and heart trust, relate into that?
Well, the head trust would be, is the work getting done? Do the results, the person doing, show the results? And what's the quality of that work, no matter whether it's home?
So I think before that even, and I agree with your comment regarding trust, but I think there's a little bit of a paradigm shift when you pay somebody by the hour, you expect them for that hour. So are you paying for their time or are you paying for their productivity? Right? And I think there's a little bit of confusion with managers and supervisors that I'm paying you for 8 hours a day. I expect you to be here for 8 hours a day, regardless of what work you're doing. But in reality, a more efficient organization is paying for that productivity. To go to what you're saying, now, do I trust you? Are you going to be able to do the job, provide the deliverables and a high quality deliverable? If you're doing that, doesn't matter if you're here or there, at home or on site doing. Right? So,
well, to me, that comes down to the interdependence of the work that they do.
100%.
Right.
Sure.
So if they have a very independent job, but people are so used to that. I agree. People are so used to that perspective of it's the time, not necessarily the productivity. Because I've always thought, when we went to COVID, I always, as much as I could, tried to go off of, well, they're either going to perform or they're not. And as long as I get what I need, then we're okay. But then you just start to question. I think that's where the heart piece comes in is, I have no reason necessarily from my head to ever distrust that, that they wouldn't do what they say they're going to do. But like, do I really have enough evidence or their deliverables to know that they're getting everything done? And I just have to kind of leap of faith, know that, are they actually doing all the stuff and being honest about their time cards and, putting in the time that they're, getting paid for to do, what level of productivity should I expect? How do I quantify that?
Well, and that's where I think that's the trap that a lot of managers fall into when they're trying to evaluate their employees working from home. They start asking questions like, well, are they really doing? The question should be more about the deliverable, the product that they're delivering, and the quality, and is it on time? Is it good quality? Those are the questions they should be using to evaluate their employees, not how many hours are sitting in front of a computer.
Yeah, but a lot of times you, as the leader, you don't necessarily have that insight to see as close as possible as you might want to know whether they're actually producing or not.
Somebody has to see that though. Somebody has to see that deliverable.
Yeah, but it may not be you as the leader who's responsible for the productivity of the team.
You're saying if there's like a supervisor in between me and the employee or?
No, I'm just saying that sometimes the work that they're doing, I may not see everything. They may be having discussions and building relationships with people. I'm not going to be able to test that or check that on a day or daily or weekly basis. And so I got to go leap of faith. Are you actually doing it? Because I don't want to wait 2 months down the road and then find out that you haven't been doing it.
I got you. But
so there's that balance somewhere.
But I would argue even if they were on site, you wouldn't be able to evaluate that either.
Oh, I know. But the fact that they're not on site is the part that you don't have that warm fuzzy.
And that's the mistake. That's where I think managers get in, they fall in this little trap by because they can't see you, they automatically assume you're not working. And that's the trust part that that's from their heart. The propensity to trust others.
Well, the propensity to trust others is part of the not of consideration. Remember, I said there's one, which is, do you have a propensity to trust yourself, and do you have a propensity to trust others? And so those are two, the flip sides of one issue. But the head and heart trust has to do with the verification of it, or the ability to logically see a pattern of behavior that would allow you to say, I'm going to trust. However, sometimes people don't ask themselves, is this a matter of me trusting them, or is it a matter of seeing them not being trustworthy? And think about the kids want to borrow the car, or think the kids want to go out and stay out at all hours of the night.
Well, I have a good example. My girls, they're middle school age. They wanted to walk home from school by themselves.
How far is it?
About a mile. And my wife wanted nothing to do with it.
Why?
But I didn't care. So
why? What did she give you any head reasons?
I guess she's worried they're going to get abducted or something, or
something that's
like
not foreseeable.
Control. Yeah,
not foreseeable.
But I guess I trust the neighborhood that what could really happen. Plus, we have like all their vitals on their
Well,
on the Google map. I know exactly where they are.
how old are these two?
11 and 13
11 and 13.
in middle school.
You could see now all of a sudden you're starting to weigh certain factors that because your wife may have a point there, given the quality.
That's
of
her heart.
today's-
That's the heart trust.
That's the propensity to trust. Period.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I don't
then-
know
and
that that's
then
head
you-
or heart because you can't. There's no experience one way or another.
What you
with
have,
them.
you're using data like you have. I have their vitals. I can see exactly where they are.
Yeah, but I can't see where all the abductors and child molesters are. Well, I guess I could see a map of where the sex offenders live. There's maps of that, but like I don't know. I didn't necessarily go into a lot of detail on
This
it.
is a heavy one. This is really heavy because the level of risk is very, very high.
Well, but it's a
in your
perceived
wife,
level of risk.
Yeah, at your wife's
Right.
perception.
Because her perception of risk is much higher than my perception of risk. But how do you differentiate between, is it the trust of the kids to do the right thing and not take candy from a stranger, combined with the trust of just the neighborhood and other people?
That's where I'd go right off the bat. I'd sit down and say, kids, mom and dad have talked about this. We're talking about this. Can you? What would happen if ever somebody approached you who you do not know? I mean, what would you do, and how would you treat that?
Stranger danger. Stranger
Well, they
danger.
did it. It was a TV series they did. What would you do? I think, and to this example, they had a stranger pull up a car and have a dog full of puppies in the back of the car in the trunk.
Wow.
And they would open the trunk and have invite the kids come look at the puppies.
And see who did what.
And then on the other side of the camera was the parents watching their kids and how they would respond. And I got to tell you, it was super, super scary to see how many kids just went right up to that trunk to go look at those puppies and how easy it would be to throw them in the trunk, close it, and be on their way. So, that's
scary stuff.
It's really scary.
It's
So to have
scary
these
stuff.
conversations with, we used to watch that show with our little ones just to scare them because like, oh my God. And so we would have those conversations, but even then, there's still some level of danger.
So they'd have to have someone come out of like the back seat and just scare the bejesus out of them so they won't ever do it again.
Well, we're talking about who has the propensity to trust. They're just puppies, Daddy.
That's right.
and
It's not
Yeah, but the
candy.
reality is those people were not bad.
But they could have been.
They
don't
could
know
have
that.
been, but they weren't.
But it was set up to be if they were actors, obviously.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
But I could figure some smart,
Yeah.
smart little kid being like, well, did anything bad happen? No, they were fine. I could tell from looking at them.
No, but
They were a TV show host. I don't know.
The point still.
there's always a level of risk, and I think the analysis. First of all, you kind of minimize that risk by having those conversations with your children. Mm-hmm. You do the evaluation of do I live in a good neighborhood or not? How far is the walk?
How old is the child?
That's right.
Or children? Or how busy is the street? A whole series of questions that help people examine the context in which they do trust, and the circumstances and the risks that go with it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just wise parenting. And of course, the last thing is you would probably, heaven forbid, have some cameras out there.
So if we take that all back to the workplace, and so my last job where I was managing an engineering department with Aaron was the PM of the entire program. We just manage expectations. We would talk to our employees, and these are my expectations, and these are the hours. These are the core hours. If I call, you'll pick up the phone or text, or you could text me if you're in a meeting or whatnot. But that was part of a way of increasing our trust. And I would do the same. So if they had a problem, they would call me, and I'd always pick up to any one of my staff members. And so setting expectations was huge. And then fulfilling those expectations, which I think made the trust in our organization quite strong.
Certainly describing the context in which your trust is extended to them, or that what is important. Here's what I'm expecting, and if I get that, then it builds trust. If I don't get it, and I don't. So if you don't see the work coming back,
Right.
If you're talking about being outside cyber,
I have this presentation by tomorrow morning, and if it didn't come, I was like, what's going on? And so don't get me wrong. I mean, we weren't perfect, but I mean, we probably ended up letting go maybe 3 or 4 employees during a 2.5 year period. So I mean, it wasn't all great. There was people that we did hold accountable, but for the most part, I thought we had a very trustworthy organization, and it was pretty high performing in my mind.
It took some time to build that, from when I came in.
It did. No, 100%.
But I think, Covey talks about accelerating trust, or the speed of trust, but it's all about setting those expectations up front, right? Is you sit down with someone and you say, here's where I'm coming from. Here's my values. Here's what you can expect from me. And here's what I expect from you. And then you got to live it. You actually have to, follow through with what you say. And if you do that, and it's, I think his analogy is it's like putting your blinker on. You don't put your blinker on the highway for yourself, right? You put it on for someone else so that they understand what your intentions are. And if somebody puts their left blinker on and then they get over to the right lane,
or they don't shut, they come to a stop and
don't
shut.
I know how I would feel if somebody has their left blinker on and it's just going, and then all of a sudden they get to the right lane. I'm not going to trust anything I see from them anymore. I'm going to get away from
them.
them.
And as you go by, you doofus.
Yeah. Or they slam their brakes on. There's no car in front of them. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. But it's that aspect of setting those expectations, I think, and then following through with them, which is what builds trust. There's an analogy that I learned, it's actually from Covey too. It was from 7 Habits, I think, when I first heard it, but I've heard it in different contexts, is that trust is like a glass jar of marbles. Every positive interaction that you have with someone, either where you said you were going to do something and followed through, or they said they were going to do something and followed through, or they were successful in something, or they supported you in something, whatever those actions are, that it puts marbles in the jar. And so the more you do that, the more full the jar gets, and the more trust you have with that person. And then, but when you do the opposite, you're taking marbles out of the jar. And even providing feedback is, taking marbles out of the jar. But as long as you have a lot of marbles, you can give, pretty direct feedback, and it's going to be fine because there's a lot of trust there. And then the last piece of the analogy is that if you do something really drastic and significantly break trust, you were talking about that earlier, it breaks the jar. And the idea is that you might be able to glue the pieces back together, but you're never going to get that glass jar back together the same way that it was before. So I don't know. I just like that idea, the concept of, filling the jar with marbles, but it's fragile. Right?
Instances of being trustworthy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
Anyways,
I think it's important that you do honestly begin to assess whether you trust yourself. And some people go, "What do you mean, trust me?" No. I know when I'm in a position where I may not keep my promise, and I have to judge whether I may not keep my promise before I ask for it. The promise to be given. So it's getting people to understand that trust is a very, very important concept.
So I do trust myself to the point where I don't feel like I need to make a New Year's resolution to make change happen.
Circling all the way back to the beginning.
Well, that's a good sentence. That's
I like that.
Really good sentence. Yeah.
Because I was really thinking about that as we're talking about it, and why I don't make New Year's. And I do trust myself. It's not like I say I want to lose 10 pounds and I never lose 10 pounds. I don't feel that way at all. But I just feel like when I want to do something, I make a plan and I do it. Yeah.
But you're talking specifically about trusting yourself to follow through with your own personal commitments.
Yeah.
I think there's other aspects of trusting yourself that may have to do with your own competency or something, right? You're being asked to do something and you've never done it before. How much are you going to trust yourself that you'd be able to do it?
I trust that I would ask for help. I guess, I don't know. So, I mean, when it comes to competence, I have no problem saying I don't know how to do something. I want to learn how to do it. Or if I'm being asked to do something that's outside my values, yeah, that may be more challenging to say. I actually speak my truth and say, no, I'm not doing that.
What about people who over-trust their own competence?
Overtrust.
You know what I mean? Like they think they're better than they are.
Yeah.
Seems like that could lead to a lot of, personal cognitive dissonance. To use an academic term, right?
For sure.
Is that because they're constantly going to be letting themselves down because they're
or deflecting, blaming others, attributing their failures to
I don't
someone
know.
else.
I'm just wondering if that's related to trust or maybe that's something else.
Well, let's just finish this discussion by saying if we break trust, you have to be emotionally willing to admit that you did break a trust or promise with someone and be willing to talk about it, or you will never recover it.
That's a great point. No, that you have to be vulnerable with yourself.
You have to be
and
vulnerable
others,
with yourself to say, I didn't do the job I wanted to.
So I would say that's probably something I'm really bad at is that repair. If I do something, if I blow up, I don't typically go back and say, "Oh, I was wrong."
Yeah.
I mean, so
it's hard.
Yeah, it is very hard.
Really hard. And you've got to have strong ties to that person to be able to go back and just say, "God, I made a mistake, and I need your forgiveness." So, interestingly enough, an aspect of building trust is willing. If someone broke a trust with you, your ability or willingness to begin to try to repair that or let them repair it is contingent upon whether you see yourself making the same mistake.
Oh, because then you have
can
empathy.
relate, right?
Yes.
Empathy, yeah.
And so the trust, it's really important that trust be understood as I'm not perfect, and I can be. I find myself in that position, and therefore, if somebody does break that trust, I have to be willing to say, "Yeah, that's a shame. I wish you hadn't done that. Let's try. Let's try it one more time. Let's see what can happen." So you've got to ask for forgiveness and be willing to give your own forgiveness from somebody else.
That's really good. I like that.
Yeah. All right. So somebody got another joke?
Jimmy's got all the jokes today.
Well, I don't know. There's another one. Cooper did this one. There's a funny part to this joke, but
Isn't that the point of all jokes?
Yeah. So the polar bear walks into a bar and he says, "I'll have a gin and tonic." And the bartender says, "Well, why the long pause?" He's like, "I don't know. I've just kind of always been born with them."
Please.
No. So we were dying at the dinner table.
Did he do that?
And he did that. We laughed. It was funny. And then he says, "I don't get it."
He didn't get it.
So we explained, a pause and pause. He's like, "Oh." We told the joke. He told that one really great. We were all laughing. It's like, "I don't get it."
That's the same one about did you hear about the horse that walked into a bar and the bartender said to him, "Why the long face?"
Yeah, kind of boring.
That's classic. I think you tried that in one of the very first podcasts.
It didn't,
no.
Didn't go.
That's too classic. Yeah, I've heard it without the polar bear.
Yeah. Lots of different variations of it, I think, yeah. All right. That was good. I thought those are...
Any more jokes?
Oh,
You're out.
I'm really glad you came back and pushed the head and heart, because that was
really
very,
good.
very important to do. And it helped. It helped him. Yeah, helped me.
Oh, I did have another one. Which days are the strongest? Which days of the week are the strongest? Saturday and Sunday, because everything else are weekdays.
I get it. Do you get it? You just don't like it. I don't even know what to do with that.
The weekdays.
I know. It's good. You need to ask him, your son.
That was my joke. That was my joke.
Oh, that was yours.
I'm gonna cut that all up so it sounds like you got nothing.
Those Did you just ask him? You know what a weekend is?
What's a weekend?
It's an inferior posterior.
Ah, that's big words.
Oh, come on.
I get it. It took me a second.
No, I got it right away. Big words hurt my head.
All right, I got to do this.
We're gonna do
All right,
one quick
everybody.
beatbox. That's perfect.
That's not beatboxing.
I'm gonna show you the video. I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about.
Guys are killing me here.
Congrats! You made it to the end of the episode. Thanks for tuning in. We genuinely hope that you found value in our conversation. If you liked it, please click that like button below and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on our current episodes. And if you didn't like it, you can click the dislike button, but make sure you click it twice. We're eager to hear from you, whether it's your thoughts, questions, topic ideas, or if you're interested in our leadership training and consulting support. Leave us a comment below or reach out to us directly at info@intrinsicfirst.com. We're open to any and all feedback. Thanks again for joining us. We look forward to having you back for more insightful leadership discussion. Until next time.